Hello, this is Scott Bouldin, and I would like to welcome you to another edition of SBM Studios Podcast. Well, hello once again, and we welcome everybody back to another episode of SBM Studios Podcast. We're tickled that you joined us today. We took a little bit of time off, but we're back and raring to go. I hope everyone has found our first 3 episodes. We enjoyed those, but I tell you what, I'm really tickled today because all of you who are listening to this, who know me and know what I'm all about, know how much I love Southern gospel music. I grew up listening to it, singing it. I've never really had the talent to be able to do it on any kind of level, but I love Southern gospel music, and I've developed some friendships through the years with several artists, and none greater than the one that I have joining me today. And I'm just tickled to have Steve Ladd, tenor for the Old Pass Quartet, joining me today on the episode. Welcome, Steve.
Man, thanks for having me on, Scott. You've been a dear friend for many years now, you and your family, and I just appreciate you inviting me on. I'm proud of you, and pray nothing but success with this podcast, and hopefully it'll reach a lot of people.
Man, I thank you so much. I was thinking today a little bit as I was preparing to have you on, I was thinking about how we met. You know, I haven't known you for just a lot of years, but
it's been about 11 years now.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun. But I know we had a mutual friend in Jason Baines, and I know you had a relationship through him when he ran sound for the McKeithans, and y'all actually did a tour together when you were.
We did. Spark a Flame, man. Spark a Flame. And Jason was new to traveling in gospel music, and you know, just a humble, sweet man. And at that time we were kids, you know. I remember I left Gold City, and I believe I lived in Nashville, right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I was like, I've got to have a Sunday night in northwestern Alabama, and I reached out to Jason, and he got me hooked up with you, and man, that was the first of many times to go sing for you at wherever you were, and just some great memories.
Absolutely great memories, and I was thankful that we connected, and you know, you've been a mighty good friend to me, more than you ever had to. And I mean, you kind of even took one for the team and stepped up and helped me out when I did that little project and sang the harmony vocals.
That was fun. You know, anytime you're around Scoot and Randy and who is your friend that helped on that?
My cousin Neil Champion and Chris Champion.
Neil, very talented guy, and that was fun. It wasn't taking one for the team. It was, I love doing studio work. I really do. And no matter what kind of scale it's at, this past Monday was in Nashville doing a background vocal session for a regional artist out in Texas. And so I just love to be able to create art, you know, and for what that's worth, I don't know, but I love it.
Yeah, man. And I really appreciated that. And I was thinking, I got a few questions, a few things we're going to step through today. But one thing that just hit me, and I was talking about my love. You know, I grew up, my family, the Champion family, Neil and Chris, who you met in the studio with Scoot and Randy. They sang for years in a couple of groups, the Columbians Quartet and the Bama Boys Quartet. And I grew up following them. My first memories of professional Southern gospel music were the Gold City Quartet. That was back in the Ivan, Brian, and Mike and Tim days, Taco on piano, and then also Cathedrals. And the Cathedral group that really captured my attention was when Mark Trammell and Danny Funderburk was part with Glenn and George. And
what a great lineup!
Oh yeah,
of
man.
Both of those groups, man. Yeah. Gold City, that was my favorite Gold City lineup. And probably my favorite Cathedrals lineup as well, not taking anything away from their legacy. I mean, they've had some wonderful tenors, and Kirk Talley, it was amazing with them. But just that raw singing when Danny Funderburk was there with the Cathedrals, it's just, you don't get much better than that. And he can still sing like that. He can. It's crazy.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, the age hasn't really taken a whole lot away. But I was thinking about me and my earliest memories. I mean, Southern gospel has been a part of my life. So, like, thinking about it, before we go into kind of the history of your singing, growing up, was singing Southern gospel, was that part of your plan? Did you grow up with dreams to sing on stage?
Oh, that's all I've ever wanted to do. My dad's an evangelist. We were a traveling, singing, and preaching family. I'm the youngest of my brothers and sister, and so we did all the music. Once we got old enough, my sister started first. She was the oldest, and then my next brother, and he started playing, and so it was one by one we all started. But then once we were self-sufficient in the music department, we did all the music in my dad's revivals, and so of course we listened to Southern gospel radio, and went to all the concerts in the area. And I can remember going to the Dayton Memorial Hall in Dayton, Ohio, where I was from. And Norm Livingston was like one of the biggest promoters in the industry at that time. And he brought the Paynes, the Hensons, Gold City, everyone there to that concert venue. And so I remember going and seeing, and I didn't know at the time it was Gold City. But I walked by their table and saw this table picture, and that's when Brian had the afro.
Right.
And I vividly remember that. And then later on, when I was a little older, I was like, oh yeah, we saw them. I walked by the table. I remember that hair. And so at a very young age, 8, 9 years old, I can remember the only thing I wanted to do was sing Southern gospel music and actually be Gold City's tenor singer. That was my dream.
Oh, wow.
Because Brian Free was my hero. That was my favorite group. I had all their albums. Anytime a new album would come out, I used to cut grass, and so so I would save up my grass cutting money, and if they came out with a new album, I was at the Christian bookstore and got it. So I didn't have a desire to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher. I only wanted to be a tenor singer for Gold City, and so
That's awesome.
I'm glad it worked out for me,
Yeah.
but because a lot of people don't get to pursue their dream. Everyone has dreams and goals, but God was faithful to me and allowed me to live my dream for the longest time now.
Yeah, and you're right. Everybody does not. Truth be told, I've talked about my love for it, and yeah, if I was being honest, my dream job, if I could, I would love to sing. My dream has been one time
Pre-coronavirus, right? Because nobody's been making any money or really singing here lately. But yeah.
Yeah, but and thinking about that, I've always just thought, what would it be like one time to step out on that NQC stage in front of that crowd? But as far as I go, and I'm just always very open and honest about this. I don't have the vocal talent to do something like that, but at least I am able to stay connected to it through friends, and I still hope to one day.
And everyone has their place, and
Yeah.
you never know. And you're a really good singer, so I don't know why you would say that you just don't have the chops to do that, because that's the good thing about music is not everybody thinks Willie Nelson is the best singer.
That's right.
But
That's
I
right.
love Willie Nelson's voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not everybody likes Bob Dylan's voice, but he's made a career out of it. And so, you don't have to have a Joseph Habedank or Arthur Rice type of
Woo.
voice to be able to make it.
Yeah.
As long as the anointing's there and you connect with people. That's what sets apart. Secular music, there's a difference because you're in front of sometimes 20, 30,000 people. You can't really connect one-on-one
Right.
with that many people. But with Southern gospel, we sing to on average 500 to 2,000 people, and just varies. But you can connect
Yeah.
more with a church audience than you can in an arena full of
Oh yeah.
tens of thousands of people. But so don't sell yourself short, and don't ever give up on it, because there's people that they didn't start until they were 50, as far as singing with a professional group and being able to sing on that coveted stage in QC.
Hey, it could be a retirement plan. Who knows?
You're right. Your wife might get tired of you being home every weekend and be like, nah, you need to get out on the road, bro.
That's right, man. But so thinking about that, that's awesome. You got to realize your dream. Now, I was looking back and kind of doing a little biography search and making sure that I knew all the ins and outs. And I thought, I saw that you started with the Anchorman Quartet in about 1997. Now, that was your first major group to sing with, right?
That was. Now, I've been on the road my whole life. We were homeschooled, went to public school for a few years of my childhood and teenage years, but primarily we were homeschooled and traveled. So I've been on the road basically my whole life,
Yeah.
but full time to make a living out of it. Um, I was it was 1997, and I was, oh Lord, I was born in '76. So what would that make me?
What is that, about 21?
N- Yeah, almost 21.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yep. So
Wow.
and stayed there 8 years, and then had a wonderful time. Learned a lot from that group. The Anchorman has always had a good group. I was a fan of theirs. I remember sitting at my in my living or my bedroom playing, because at one time in my life when I was a teenager, we kind of we had a country station in the little town in West Virginia we lived in, and it was full time country on the FM dial, but on the AM side they would just play preaching or stick a Tennessee Ernie Ford's album on and play it back to back. I mean, that they didn't have anyone that could run the gospel side of it. And so we went up there one day. My mom drove me and my brother and said, "We have this collection of Southern Gospel CDs and music, and um, we don't want any money for it, but if you'd allow us, we'd love to come in and play Southern Gospel music." Well, they did. So I got on all the record labels. Radio compilation discs, mailing lists, and so I remember getting a CD and that had the Anchorman. I feel like running the original version, the live version, and I was a fan of the Anchorman, when I was a teenager. So, um, and they've always had a wonderful group, and I learned a lot about how to be on the road because it's different when you're traveling on the road with your family,
Oh, yeah.
than when you're traveling with six other guys on a
Right.
bus, and everyone has different backgrounds, religious backgrounds, thought backgrounds, everything. And so I grew up pretty fast being on the road
I
at an
bet.
early age with quartets.
I bet. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Anchorman had some that group that you was a part of. I know. I remember some specific. And I hate to call out names and leave out
Jeff
any, but
Chapman,
yeah,
man,
Jeff
Jeff
Chapman.
Chapman
Yeah,
with the Kingdom Airs, Philip Hughes, who was with the Kingsmen,
great
had some
voices.
wonderful, wonderful singers, and even to this day, like David Sutton with
Yeah,
Triumphant, he started out with the Anchorman, and so just so many great singers, and it seemed like it was a revolving door, but and that's what a lot of people think of when they think of the Anchorman. But when you think of it, they they were the launching pad for, that's why they have. And I'm not demeaning them in a way of saying they were a farm team for
yeah,
the pro level, but I mean, in the same sense, that's why the New York Yankees has a farm team
that's right.
somewhere in Atlanta or somewhere like that, because you're always looking for new singers,
Oh yeah,
and so they were smart enough to know that hey, if someone wants to leave, as long as they leave on good terms, once an Anchorman, always an Anchorman, and
that's awesome.
I'll forever cherish my time with them.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Some of the groups like the Anchorman and back in the day, Singing Americans and the
Yep,
Dixie Melody Boys. They have put a lot of singers on other groups, but that's it's been a great thing. And they've always
yep.
remained consistent. I was thinking about, you mentioned about liking Brian and liking the Gold City. The first memory I have of you vocally, and I think it was on that first album with the Anchorman, you had a song, Giver of Life. And I remember hearing that song. And to me, your vocal stylings reminded me a lot of Brian. I mean, it reminded
Well,
me a
and that
lot
was my
back then.
goal. I mean, all I would do as a teenager, most teenagers, at that time, were watching MTV or hanging out with friends, because we weren't in public school. I didn't have a lot of friends, in the
Right.
neighborhood, and so I didn't. I just sit at home and play my Gold City CDs and just sing every note with Brian, sing his part, and so he was my hero. And since then has become a great friend. I actually filled in for him one weekend when his son was graduating. His youngest, Bryce, was graduating, and that was an honor for me. I mean, growing up and him being my hero, and it's amazing that I'm not trying to say he's old, but he's older than me. I was a kid and he was already traveling with Gold City. So, um, and he still to this day has a consistent voice.
He
You
does.
know, it's him. And to me, has gotten even better since the 80s, And so, yeah, he was my hero in Southern gospel music growing up.
Yeah, he definitely he hasn't lost anything, and he may not quite sing as high as he used to all the time with at the Gold City days, but he doesn't have to, and it's to me he's really grown vocally, and he
Yeah, and
I
that's
love
one thing you
listening to
start
him.
realizing the older you get, Scott, is, Michael English was another one of my heroes growing up, especially my teenage years, because, I wasn't familiar with the vocal band back, when I was real young, but especially the Michael English era of that, and then his solo stuff. He was a hero of mine, but we've worked several times in the studio together and with Gold City and solo. And he was like, man, you got to sing this song when you're 55 years old. If you want it
Right.
to last, I mean, you got to be able to sing this song. And so that's one thing you realize is, um, it's the people out in the audience don't know you're hitting a B flat or a C or a D. As long as it's comfortable for you, I want to be able to sing for a long time. So even I, in my getting up there in age, and um, I'm mindful of that, because there's so many people that just sing sky high for their whole career, and then when they are older, it's harder to hit those notes, and you're not as polished or clear, and so
Mhm.
I'd rather be able to sing songs for the rest of my life than to not be able to sing them at all.
Oh yeah, and then taking that, talking about the Gold City connection, then about what 2004, I believe that was.
2004, I joined Gold City. Yep, 2004. That was, I remember where I was at. We were in Pennsylvania at a camp meeting. Well, it was a concert, but it was at a campground, like a Wesleyan campground, where they had, it was open sides, but it was covered. One of those type of, just you go to a camp meeting or a youth camp or something, where the pavilion is outside, but it's covered in case it rains. But I remember sitting on the bus, and we had just got done with sound check. I believe we were actually doing a Spark of Flame that night with the McKeithans, and I think the Dove brothers were there as well. And someone came on the bus. We were all sitting on the bus, and someone came on and said, "Did y'all hear Jay Perrick just turned in his resignation? He's leaving Gold City." And I kind of played it off from it, because I always said that was my dream, and that if I ever had the opportunity, I would go for it. And so I played it off for several minutes, and then I was like, "Hey, I need to walk outside." And I walked outside, and I called our booking agent, who happened to book for Gold City as well. And I said, "I just heard about Jay, and I want a shot at it." And she gave me Tim's number, and Tim said, "Hey, Danny's handling all that," and was very kind. And I called Danny and set up a tryout, and man, the next week I got a call saying I had the job. So it was the thrill of a lifetime. Moved from North Carolina to Gadsden, Alabama, and I'm still in Alabama. When I left Gold City in 2009, I moved to Nashville for about 5-6 years, but just love Alabama so much. I moved back. And so I'm still about 30 minutes from Gold City's headquarters.
That's great. And I was thinking, and every artist through the years, there's a song or two that kind of becomes their signature song, I guess is the best way that I could put that. And thinking about you, I think it was around 2006 or so. I think Tim had come off the road. You had Aaron on bass, and y'all put out the Revival CD. And on that CD, y'all had a song that featured you, Preach the Word. Would you say that's probably one of your signature songs? Or
That definitely is. That's become, it was such a blessing when we went in the studio. That was the first time I met Michael English, Michael Sykes. They were both producing that album, and so we had gathered a bunch of songs, and to listen to, and we met in the studio one day in Nashville, and there's Michael sitting at the soundboard hitting play on all these songs, and Jonathan had found what he wanted to do. Danny had found Eric, and I didn't have like that one song that and this song came on, and And as soon as it went from the first verse to the chorus, it was a choir song. A great friend of mine that we've become great friends now, Jim Davis, he wrote that song. He's from Riverdale, California, and he wrote the song, sent it to us. But he has a youth choir that they go on tour every year, going from California all the way to the East Coast and back, and uh, like 100 voice youth choir. It's incredible. And but they'd made a CD, and he sent that song to us. And when it got to the second verse, I was like, I like that song, but I know Jonathan or Daniel get this song if they like it better than one of their other ones. Because, I mean, they had tenure. I mean,
Right.
it was Tim Riley's son or Jonathan Wilburn, who had won favorite lead singer of the year for years.
Right.
And so I was like, and then all of a sudden, Michael, and we had only met that day, that morning. And he'd never, I mean, maybe he had looked online and listened to what I sounded like, but he saw the potential and he said, I think Steve should sing the song just
Oh,
out of the
wow.
blue.
Mm.
And I mean, from that moment, and then I remember normally when we would do an album, we would all four vocals go to the studio, even though we did it part by part. The lead would put down his part, the baritone, then the tenor, or the tenor and baritone, and then the bass final. But this time they sent me by myself to Nashville to record my vocals. None of the other guys. So I had no family support in the studio. Scared to death. Michael English sitting in the other room across the
Oh.
glass, and Michael Sykes. And they sent me up there to Nashville alone to do that, And I was like, and I remember starting it and getting through it. We always sing it through one time, and then he stopped everything, Michael English, and he said, you know what, man, as Michael talks, he said, um, Brian Free is great and all. He said, but when people hear this, do you want them to say, is that Brian Free's new song, or is that Steve Ladd with Gold City?
Oh, wow.
And so it clicked. And from that moment on, he said, man, just sing like you've always wanted to sing. And I'd up to that point always sang that almost fake type of tenor, the falsetto
Yeah.
kind of just head tone,
Hmm.
real thin. Um, but I'm a fan of like Steve Perry and
Yes.
um, Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, and
Now
those
you're
type of
talking.
singers. Yeah, and so and they were tenor singers, but they were full voice tenor singers,
Right.
And so he was like, man, just sing like you've always wanted to sing. He said, just think of it this way: don't think of yourself as a quartet tenor singer anymore. He said, think of yourself as a good singer that just happens to sing high.
Wow. That's
And
good
once
stuff.
he said that, it clicked in my head, and I started singing totally different from that moment on. And I feel like every album I've done has been, I've gotten more confident in that, because it's hard to go from just singing like this to singing big,
Right.
making it big but also high. And so, there was preacher, and it came out, and it was a song that when I left Gold City, not that I had plans of that, but when I left, every church has played that for the pastor. Every church choir sang that song.
That's
And
right.
so they played it for Pastor Appreciation Day, and put pic collages up of their pastor and, the church. And so it opened the door when I said, hey, I'm the singer that sings Preach the Word, and so it has been a blessing to me. It really has. And not every singer gets the chance to say, okay, oh, they might not know the name, but they know the song, and they're all, he sings that song. So
Hmm.
it's been fun. It's been a blessing, and I'm thankful for it.
That's great. And yeah, I was listening. I'm a collector of Southern gospel music, and I was listening back and forth to some songs leading up to this interview this week. And yeah, listening to you back on Giver of Life versus listening to you today with Old Pass, it's just different. It's just, and you just you took us through why it's different. But your transition and that experience with Michael in the studio. So I love stories like that. That's good stuff.
Well, and it's the truth, and it also goes to show, that you never quit learning. You know, I
Right.
mean, you never, if a painter only painted the same picture every time, people get tired of seeing, seeing their paintings because they're going to be like, well, I just saw this,
Right.
last time we painted a painting. And so, um, it has helped to, and not to be too secular, redefine my career in a sense to where because I realized real fast when I left Gold City and decided to become a soloist that, um, the modern church world is different than what it was.
No doubt.
In order for a lot of the modern church world, they don't bring any Southern gospel in. They think it's hokey, or they're used to the old stuff where four guys in four matching suits and ties and hokey jokes, and you know. But then I was able to come in and do some more modern sounding stuff, some praise and worship, along with singing songs like "I'll Fly Away" and "Preach the Word" and Southern Gospel, and let people see that, man, we could bring him in and he appeals to everyone in our audience, young to old. And so it has helped me to stay relevant in the music business, for the last 12 years.
Absolutely, because when you came into Kennedy when I was there, and even when you came in, I think a couple of years ago at Detroit, where we're at now,
Yep.
and watching you can open up a set with a song that most praise and worship choirs know, like Everlasting God, and the young folks
Yep.
know that. And then you can transition to some of the standard present Southern gospel, and then you can pick up, like you said, I'll Fly Away, stuff like that. And by the time that you've left the place, you've connected with everybody when you get right down to it. There's
and
been.
that's my goal. Even with the old pass, is not everybody in the group sounds the same. Like Tim's a diehard Southern gospel lead singer.
Right.
That's all he's ever done. But yet he's broadening his repertoire. I mean, our new album has "This Is Amazing Grace," which is a worship song,
That's right.
and he does it great. But he can turn around and sing "Look at All I Lost," which is just a straightforward Southern gospel song. But so it's we each bring something different to the table,
Yes.
and you have to have something for. I mean, this is a hungry world. I mean, everybody's wanting their ear tickled. Not in that sense as far as what Paul wrote to Timothy, but everyone has different musical tastes because of the internet and so many different genres.
Yes.
And so there are people sitting out there that loves bluegrass, and some that love rock, and some that love country, and so if you've got the combination where you can appeal to just about everybody in that place, um, then I feel like you'll be successful and you'll stay busy,
Oh yeah.
because and so we've been blessed.
That's great. And stepping through that, we've talked a little bit, going through this history. We've moved to your solo, and I think you still do a few solo dates, but a couple of years ago you picked up the tenor part for the Old Pass Quartet as they reorganized and got back on the road, and that's who you're with presently, and you guys are just a fantastic quartet, and I'm tickled to hear that y'all are getting back on the road after this Corona-mageddon that we've experienced, but I know you guys do a great job. And I was thinking, I don't want to keep you on the phone forever, but I do have a couple of rapid-fire kind of questions to ask you that you might can I don't know. I mean, this is kind of your standard interview stuff,
Shoot
but it's
away, dude.
still stuff that I think folks like to know. So, we talked a little bit about your musical influences and your stylings. We know you grew up listening to Brian, and you first styled your vocals after him. You also mentioned something that you may have told me before, but we're kindred spirits when you started mentioning Journey and Steve Perry and stuff like that, because I'm a weird mix. I love Southern gospel and I love classic Southern rock kind of music. So you're
Me
speaking to
too, and
me
I
there.
like and yeah, man. I mean, there's never in my opinion, one of the best vocals to sing was Steve Perry and
Absolutely.
and Steven Tyler.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, when you
Yeah.
think about it, I mean, as high as he could get, just and just and even totally on the other side of the spectrum, Vince Gill
Yes.
and uh, Willie Nelson is one of my favorite all time singers. I love how he sounds the same today as he did 30 years ago. I mean,
Right.
and so I grew up, um, we didn't have to just listen to Southern gospel. We just chose to,
Right.
but I wasn't in a family where you couldn't play, you know, a Willie Nelson song on the radio. I mean, we loved music,
Yes.
and they instilled in us, my parents instilled in us a love for just music in general because, and I'm not talking about death metal rap or,
Yeah, I know. I got you.
explicit language.
Right.
I'm just saying good old homes, Vince Gill, I still believe in you and me. I mean, that's what every couple should sing to each other,
Absolutely.
and so I loved those old, because I grew up in the '80s. I was born in '76, grew up in the '80s, and so that's when that style was popular, just that
Oh yeah.
power ballad rock and roll, and you had those incredible voices that are not found right now, very very seldom found right now in the music industry.
Well, you make a good point because I've been mixing a project for my cousins, and we were working on the mix. And of course, I've got the digital recording software and all the hookup, and we're going through and I'm fixing stuff. There's a place here or there that we might tune, or there's a place here or there that we might clip. And one of them made the comment about think about the way it used to be when folks had to go in there and sing
They
it.
had to sing it right until it was right, you know,
Yes.
and you know how hard it is to get it right. I mean, you might work for 30 minutes on one stinking line,
Right.
I mean, it's just now you're like you have the capability of nope, let's go redo that. Nope, hit it again. Nope, hit it again. Where back then they were such good singers. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, Steven Tyler or even Stephen Perry probably worked on a song for hours and hours, but they didn't have tuning or Melodyne or
Right. Right.
auto tuning. I mean, they had to get it right,
Yeah.
and so that's why to this day they, I mean, they might be older and have dropped a couple notes,
Yeah.
but they're still incredible singers, is because they knew how to sing. It wasn't this nowadays. Nah, it doesn't matter as long as you look great and you look hot. We can
Right.
make you sound great.
It, perfect example because now, yeah, it makes it where you just don't have to work that hard on your singing. You work harder on your presentation and the
Yep,
package,
and the looks.
and
Yep.
we'll make it sound good. So yeah, so those and that kind of answers. I was just curious about some of your influences and vocal stylings, and that hits there. Some of your heroes you've mentioned. So thinking about, I mean, I know there's no telling how many miles you've got on you, even at your you're not relatively young age. You're younger than me, so I think you're
I
young.
just turned 44 last year, man.
Yeah. So and I'm
Or no, last week.
last
I'm
week.
sorry, not last
Yeah.
year.
And I'm 46, so you're young. So, but any like on your road travels, any just major memorable concerts or venues or experiences? Does anything just jump out to you that just if you were making a scrapbook of your career, you would have to include?
Yeah, the first time at NQC, I mean, that was my dream, was to be able to sing on National Quartet Convention stage, and never dreamed. That's a big one. Never dreamed I'd sing on the Grand Ole Opry stage, and they
Yeah.
had a weekend where they did Southern gospel music all weekend long, and the Anchormen were one of those groups, and so I stood on that stage and sang. You know, um, so many, man. It was about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I was asked to be a part of Alan Jackson's second gospel album, Precious Memories Volume Two,
Wow.
which won a Billboard Music Award for favorite Christian album. Sold 4 million or over 40 million copies at the time,
Wow.
God has blessed me so much. I was 2017 was inducted into the GMA, Gospel Music Association Hall of Fame with Gold City. So,
Hmm.
so many cool things have happened. The Old Pass had a number one back in March of this year
Yes, you
with
did.
Come Sunday Morning. I was
Hmm.
featured on, and so, man, it's just been a blessing to be able to, even through this coronavirus. I mean, I mentioned to you before we went on air, I had to file for unemployment for the first time in my whole entire life,
Yeah.
but I'm still sitting here thinking how much I've been blessed, and to be able to do what I have, which is in light of other people seems small, but to me, a country boy from Ohio, and we were raised poor. I mean, my dad would take any revival. He was under the mindset if they wanted us to come sing and preach, it didn't matter how small it was, how many people were there, we were going to go, which is right because everyone needs the gospel. But as far as someone who was trying to supply for his family, sometimes it was very meager. We had a lot of rough times growing up, and to see what God has allowed me to do has been just mind blowing. Because I'm not worthy of it. My brothers, they had a desire and a dream as well to do what I'm doing, and it never worked out for them. But yet it did for me. And so I sit sometimes back and I look and I'm like, well, why did it happen for me and not them?
Oh yeah.
And so I've just been blessed.
Yeah, blessing after blessing for sure, and I thank you for sharing that. Now, take a little turn here, though, because we talk about blessing after blessing and filling the scrapbook with wonderful memories. How about, this is one out of the old interview pocket, but, through your years, I'm sure you've had some boo-boos. I'm sure you've had some slip-ups. Do you have any just like hugely major embarrassing moment that you would share with listeners, something that we, make somebody smile? I know everybody's human, so we all have our boo-boos. I remember one time I was directing choir for Sunday morning worship, and we had already transitioned out of the pastor and I did not wear suits, every Sunday. We kind of,
Yep.
we still like maybe slacks, sport coat, or khakis and a button down, something like that. But I praise God that day I did have a suit on, because I led the choir, of course, with my back to the congregation. And when we got through and I started coming down, I felt something and I reached back and the back of my pants had busted out. I mean, absolutely, like the seam had blown out. And I thank the good Lord that I had the suit jacket on, or that would have been, something that would have been hard to get over. Just, you ever had anything that just comes to mind?
Well, of course, man. I mean, there've been times I've went on stage and we take an intermission or an offering break, and I go backstage and then I realize my zipper's been down.
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody has had something like that, but just typical stuff. I remember I was with the ankle one night, and it TMI, but it hit me before we went on stage. It hit me. I had to go to the bathroom. And so I thought I had plenty of time. And I get out of the bathroom, I wash my hands, walk out back of the sanctuary, and the guys are all standing on stage. They've already introduced the group, and here I am. And all I could say was when I got to my mic, well, when you got to go, you got to go,
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man. All right. So before we get to kind of the closing thought I want to go to, now this is something that's a little selfish on my part, and talking about my singing, and I appreciate what you said, but even my talking and my voice through the years has gotten a little more raspy, and I have what I guess you would call.
Well, just tell that to Steven Tyler. I mean, the raspy is cool,
But the reason behind this is I have what I guess you would call chronic sinusitis. I mean, 365 days a year, I am stopped up. I have issues, and I've had allergy shots. I've taken every spray. I've had surgery. I've done about everything that you can do. And it's just something, even when I do sing for a long time, and if I start trying to place like you're supposed to correctly place in the mask, to sing, I end up getting just a miserable throbbing headache for that day. All that to say is, someone like you who's your livelihood depends on your voice and being as good as you possibly can night after night. But still, I mean, sickness comes, issues comes. Do you have any secrets, any magic remedies, anything you go to either for staying healthy or when you feel the issues coming on that would affect your singing that you do to kind of help yourself get through it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I take an allergy pill every day, whether I need it or not. I just take it a 24-hour allergy pill. I take Mucinex every day, whether I need it or not, and it just keeps you clear. Um, and I take this stuff called Wellness Formula, and people can find that on Amazon, or their, vitamin shop or an herb shop. It is incredible. It's called Wellness Formula, and you take it whether you're sick or not. You take a pill or two a day, with your other medicine. And then if you feel, what's great about it, for me, not everybody, but for me, if I wake up and I feel, oh, I'm getting sick or I've got a sore throat, I'll start taking 3 every 3 hours. And man, by the next day, I don't feel anything. And so it helps me. It's called Wellness Formula. And you can find it. I don't take the capsules. I take the actual herbal pills, and they smell horrible and taste horrible. But I'm telling you, they have worked for me. Tim Riley got me on those when I joined Gold City. For some reason, if someone would get sick on the bus, boom, I get it.
Right.
I just got sick all the time. And he said, you need to be on Wellness Formula. And I'd never heard of that. And I went and I got some at a mall that day at a Vitamin World, and have taken it ever since.
Well, now I'm doing this for selfish reasons. And if when I start asking some of these artists this, I'm going to start trying some of
You're
this to see if
down.
it helps me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good stuff. Well, I've really, I've enjoyed my time with you, but I wanted to kind of close this down and our podcast here, we go in a lot of different directions and we have a lot of fun, but there's always going to be a faith-based piece to this. And I was thinking about, and I was talking with you a little bit before we jumped on this podcast, that over the years and just watching you sing, hearing you sing, I was reminded, I remember that Glenn Payne of the Cathedrals, he would talk at length about communicating a song. He, much more than singing a correct note or anything else. It's communicating the message of the song was what was important. And whether it's been songs like Preach the Word or Broken People Like Me, songs like that. That's one thing that I've really come to admire about you. I think you're a fantastic communicator of the songs that you sing. Even when you were in the studio with me with songs that you were not very familiar with, when you got into it and you were singing the lyrics and singing the message, you could tell that you kind of go to a different place. It's not that you're just singing and you're trying to do precision singing of notes. You take yourself to a place, I would say a place of worship, a place of feeling what you're singing and knowing the truth behind it. And I remember specifically when you were at Kennedy, I think it was the first time you came to Kennedy, and I think you may have closed the service, but you sung a song, and I mean, it absolutely tore me to pieces and you communicated it well. The song was A Secret Place, The Secret Place, I believe is the title of it. But and it basically talks about the brokenness of an individual, individual having things in their life that nobody else sees, and you really don't want to show to anybody, and you especially don't want to open up that secret room where those issues are. You don't want to let the Lord look upon it, even though He is the one who shines that healing light into it and takes all the hurt away and makes all things new. But you communicated that song so well, and I thought maybe if you didn't mind that, with songs like that you can communicate well, maybe, where you go, maybe you can speak about what they mean to you. Maybe you have a message for our listeners today, because every listener today that's listening to us is a broken vessel. There is none righteous, no, not one. And all of us have things. I mean, one reason that song got me so bad is because I have issues. I have failed. I have fallen. I have failed my family. I have failed my God. I have let people down, and most importantly, I've let my Savior down. And so, when you communicated that song, you were singing to me, and you were communicating that to me. And so maybe just share where you go in communicating a song, and then maybe you have a message for the listeners, that may be listening in a place. This world is telling us a lot of dark lies right now, and people are looking for hope, and they're looking for they're looking for truth. They're looking for something to fill an empty void in their life. So anyway, I thought you might talk about your communication of a song, and then maybe if you had any message for the listener today.
Yeah, and I don't know the secret recipe to that. All I can tell you is that when I first started singing, I told my dad the first time I sang on his revival stage, I said, I can't remember, 6 or 7 years old. And I told my dad I wanted to sing. He said, all right, we'll get with sis. And because she played the piano, she said, just pick a song. And I said, no, I want to sing the invitation song. For some reason, I was drawn to that time of the service. I knew that was the most important part of the service, and that a song could be the open door for someone saying, okay, that's me, I need to go and get saved. And so and he could have said, I'm not going to let a 7-year-old or 8-year-old sing the invitation song tonight when it's the most important, but he did. And from then on, I always sang the invitation song. And so to me, it was not just singing a song and being seen, because I knew every head would be bowed and every eye closed. And from a very young age, I had a self complex issue, just a horrible self image of myself. And so, but that was the most perfect time to be singing, when everybody had their eyes closed, and their heads down. And so, to me, I knew that was important. And so when I would sing, it was one of the most important times of the night. So I took it literally. I took it very seriously. And so then when I would sing anything else, I tried to keep that mindset that the invitation hour is not just at the end of the service. It could be during the middle. It could be during the congregational singing, or and so I always kind of felt the need for it to be a serious thing. And it's like Michael Sykes. I mentioned I did a session this past Monday with him, and he was like, I could have called this person, I could call that person, because I live in Alabama, 3 hours away. But he called me, and he's like, man, technically it would have been right, and but he said, but that person just doesn't have the heart that you have when you sing. And to me, that was the biggest compliment, because this guy's produced the Oak Ridge Boys, gave the vocal band. I mean, so many people. And so that's the biggest compliment, when they say you can communicate a song, even if you're not singing the lead on it, even if you're just singing harmony, because I feel like it should be passionate. And so but where that all stems from is when I started singing the invitation music. And so, and knowing the reverence of that hour, or not hour, but that moment in the service, and knowing that even though the words of the Bible and everything is the one drawing, and the Spirit's drawing that person, but if there's a song that, like you, when I sang Secret Place, it just melted your heart. Imagine if someone was out there and they're not saved, and they're thinking about crossing that threshold, but yet not. But then if I could sing a song that would just open their heart up to really what they need to do, that could be all the difference in the world. And so that's what I try to do, even if I'm singing a fast song, something that's not an invitation, or a big power ballad, or like Broken People Like Me. I mean, that song, when I heard it, Kenna Turner West, and she sent it to us, and I was like, "Oh, but that's me." I've had things in my life that have been unpleasing to God from childhood, and things in my life that have happened that caused me to be bound. Um, and so, but what the average listener needs to know is, even though we see someone on TV, or we see Charles Stanley, or even Billy Graham, we're all human. There were things in Billy Graham's life that, boy, he didn't probably want everybody to know.
True.
There
Yes.
were things in his life, just like we all face, that he was probably like, oh Lord, people knew this about me. Would they put any stock in what I'm saying? And so, that's the beautiful thing about salvation. We don't have to be perfect. Yes, we need to strive to be like Jesus and strive to be perfect. But if we could be perfect by striving to be perfect, he wouldn't have had to come and die.
Amen.
You know, and so we all need to realize that, even though we have things in our life that maybe hold us back from our full potential, or hold us back as far as mentally or bind us from childhood or something like that. Um, that we can still be used by God and we are still his children. And if he's given us a talent or a, something to do for him, that don't have to hold us back. We don't have to say, well, once I get my life straight now, once I get over this thing, then I can really be used. No, I mean, we can be used right where we're at. And that's why I love the song Broken People in Secret Places, because we all, I mean, from Billy Graham down to me, we've all had stuff in our lives that have not been pleasing to God. And just because you never found out about it from Billy Graham or, all these other big time preachers doesn't mean they haven't struggled with something. And so I hope that encourages someone today that, I mean, we're all human. And if we could be
Amen.
perfect, he wouldn't have had to die. And so he can still use our brokenness.
That's great, Steve. I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners, and that's a message that folks need to hear. I remember specifically one time with a gentleman, and you could tell the Lord was dealing with the heart and knocking on the door, whatever cliche you want to use, but you knew that the Spirit was dealing with him. He was being drawn to being saved,
Sure.
and discussing it, he said, "But I'm not." I'm not good enough. I can't live a good enough life to merit being saved. And that's not, if we could live that righteous life, like you said, there would have been no need for Jesus to come from his throne and to die for our sins and for us to have salvation that we have through his cleansing power. There's no cleansing power within ourselves. So that's a
No,
good message.
and that's what you need to see when you see your pastor up on Sunday morning. And we put people on pedestals, and we start believing in them more than the God that they're trying to serve, just like us.
Mercy.
I
Yes.
mean, it's that pastor maybe had a argument with his family the night before, or slept on the couch on a Saturday night because he argued with his wife over an issue, you know. But yet, that's what he does in his calling. He had to get up the next morning and put his suit and tie on and go try to bring a word to the people. But people don't realize that everyone is human. Everyone struggles with something. It might not be to the same level as you or me or the next person, but it's all the same in God's eyes.
Amen, brother. I thank you for sharing that. And I tell you, I've really, really enjoyed spending this time with you, and I appreciate you and your willingness to spend the time with us. To our listeners, I want to take this opportunity just to remind you that if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the SBM Studios podcast, then please share it with your friends, share it on social media, and for sure, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or if you're listening to it on Spotify or whatever application you're listening to, if you will subscribe and follow, then you won't miss our next episode. And we just appreciate the support and appreciate those who are listening with us. But before we go, Steve, real quick, I would like to give you the opportunity. I do know you still take a few select solo dates, and then, of course, you are traveling with Old Pass Quartet. So why don't you tell our folks where they can find you, your group, your solo ministry, any kind of websites or social media that you could share with our listeners in case they want to look you up. And we would love for you to invite Steve and the Old Pass to your church. So, Steve, why don't you share that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. They can look up the Old Pass on Facebook, the Old Pass Quartet, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. They can look me up if they're just interested in my solo music. I don't do, like you said, I only do a few here and there during the year. And as far as solo concerts, and it's normally at a revival or at a
Right.
conference or a special event during the week because the Old Pass sing every weekend. So, but they can go to Steve Ladd Music on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, Steve Ladd Music or steveladd.com. And find out more about my music and everything there. I've got a new, my latest album. It's been out for about a year and a half, and Jason Krabs featured on there with me, and so just got some. It's a little different than my quartet stuff with the group, but I've had some really wonderful wonderful songs
Yes, you
throughout the
have.
years that have been I've been blessed to be able to record. So they can go on Spotify or Apple Music or anything and just look up Steve Ladd and follow my music there.
Well, Steve, I thank you so much for sharing that. And I really do thank you for spending the afternoon with us and sharing with our listeners. And I've really enjoyed talking with you. I know it's going to be a blessing to those who do pass by and listen to our podcast. And I pray blessings on you and your ministry always. And I hope you know that if you ever need me for anything, all you have to do is call on me, and I'll do my best to do what I can do. And to our listeners, we thank you so much for joining us today. We pray blessings upon you as well. And we hope that you follow us again on all of your applications that you're listening to this on. Follow us on Spotify, follow us on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. But until next time, we'll see you around the bend.